Um, so we'll behave as if we didn't meet ourselves earlier on. We're starting afresh, okay? So good morning and welcome to the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN. We're most delighted to have you this special morning. Special for a number of reasons. One, it is the first presidential parley that's being held by the president, the newly elected president of the Institute. And two, after over 50 years, the president has finally, the Institute has finally elected her first female president, and her name is Mrs. Funmi Ekundayo, FCIS. So that's why this parley is exceptionally special. And for us to have invited you, you know that you really matter to us. As we briefed earlier on in our private session, ICSAN requires and needs and seeks the full partnership of the press as we go forward in the next 2 years and beyond. We deeply appreciate what you have done for us in years past, and we're excited, especially after our discussion this morning, what we can still do together in the next 2 years. So as the institution said, Mr. Institution said, we want, you're very welcome. We consider the press a very cardinal part of publicity for the Institute. In fact, without the press, the publicity committee will have nothing more to do. And the way the press can work with us is not only for publicity, because the committee is actually named publicity and advocacy. But with enough publicity, we can also make our way in advocacy. Again, we thank you for your time. I thank you most especially for getting here on time, because we said 10 and most of you were here for 10. We do appreciate that, because ICSAN is also known for punctuality. I will briefly go around on the ICSAN side to introduce those that are here with ICSAN, and then I would allow the press to do their own introduction like we did earlier on. Like I said, forget we spoke earlier, but start all over again. So I think I'll start with Madam President. Sitting at the, for want of a better word, the high table, is the first female president of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN. She is Mrs. Funmi Ekundayo, FCIS. And again, I should actually say this. This is the first time we're having a female president. And guess what? This is the first time we're also having a female president and a female vice president. It's never happened before. Sitting next to Mrs. Ekundayo is the Vice President of the Institute, Mrs. Uto Ukwana, FCIS. And sitting beside me is the Honorary Treasurer of the Institute, Mr. Francis Olawale, FCIS. So Gloria, remember you said you worked with me when I was registrar? Why are you shy? Right? You worked with me when I was registrar, right? Now I want to introduce you to my own boss, the man I took over from. We call him Elder Togunde, FCIS. He's also the chairman of the membership and grant liaison committee of the Institute. Sitting next to him is another elder, Elder Pelerua, FCIS. All the way and sitting next to him is the vice chairman of the Publicity and Advocacy Committee, Mrs. Bumi Adefolu, ACIS. And then standing at the back is the, okay, I'll take Madam first. She's the head of secretariat and DR academics of the Institute, Ms. Oladuni Ogunshilire. Yeah. So standing at the back, like our chaperone, is the Deputy Registrar Operations, Mr. Michael Umogu. And sitting next to Mrs. Bumi Adefolu is the head of research of the Institute. We call him KKK, but you will call him Mr. Kayode Ketepe, FCIS. You have Julie Bassi, ACIS. Well, she's the rapporteur, not rapporteur, She's the secretary of members. She's the secretary of this committee, but also she's the photographer for one of the better ways. So I think I've gone around the room.
No, you have not.
Yourself. Oh, sorry. My name is Nkechi Onyenso, FCIS. I am the chairman of the Publicity and Advocacy Committee. Okay, yes, there's somebody with the head of secretariat. Mr. Mustafa, please give us audience. We want to see you. That's Mr. Mustafa. He's the head of IT for the institute. So on this note, would please ask to go around the room again, so the representatives of the institute and our distinguished president can meet you. So again, I will start with you, Abiodun.
Good morning, everyone. Abiodun Sibokaku from that newspaper.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Manuel Onka. I work with Nigeria Info FM.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Yvonne Guizora. I write for Daily Trust newspaper.
Today at the Balogo event, Radio Lagos Equator.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Henry Uche, the son.
Good morning, all. XPO Maka from NT Lagos.
Good morning. I'm Nike Kokola from Punch newspaper.
Good morning, everyone. I am Gloria Mwako, the Guardian newspaper.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lisbeth Adebeson from Vanguard newspaper.
Finally, I really want to commend you the way you remember everybody's name so easily. My name is Daniel Obi. I write for Business Day.
Thank you, everyone, for the introduction. At this gesture, I'll be handing over to the distinguished amiable president, our first female president of the Institute, Mrs. Funmi Ekundayo, FCIS.
Thank you very much. This is Nkechi Onyenso, FCIS, the chairman of the Publicity and Advocacy Committee of the Institute. My vice president, Mrs. Utopana, FCIS. The honorary treasurer, Mr. Olawale Francis, FCIS. The head of secretariats, Ms. Oladuni Ogunsolere. And the amazing council members who of their own voluntary will are here to support this event. I am very wowed. When I saw both of them, I was taken aback. I'm talking of none other than Mr. Dele Togunde and Mr. Babatunde Pelewura. Thank you for making the sacrifice. It is most appreciated. I would also like to say a big thank you and well done to the Vice Chair of the Publicity and Advocacy Committee, Mrs. Funmi Adefolu. So I'll move forward, standing on already established protocols by the chairman of the committee. Now, I'd just like to also write on our own appreciation of the ladies and gentlemen of the press who have joined us today. We really cherish the partnership with all our media partners, and we are very positive that the collaboration between ICSAN and the press community will continue to deepen, and all in a bid to ensure that the right narrative around issues of corporate governance are well delivered to the public, such that we begin to see the effects, of the conversations we have around good corporate governance from time to time. So I'd like to thank you once again and welcome you to ICSAN Secretariat. Thank you so much.
Okay. At this gesture, we would like to go straight to the Parley to hear from our president. Thereafter, we'll take questions and which will be answered by the president. And then we'll wrap it up from there. Is that okay? To proceed?
That's okay.
You talk later. All right, so Madam President.
Okay, so I'll just talk around the vision that we have for this next 2 years under the current administration. The agenda that we have is actually quite ambitious. I would say that it's multi-facets, but we believe that with the cooperation and support of everyone, we will be able to achieve as much as possible within the period that we have. All the agenda items are equally important to us, but I would like to say that the one that really pertains to our members, as we all know, ours is a membership economy. It's a membership-driven institute. Hence, the development and continuous education of our members remain topmost on our agenda. And in this regard, we'll be looking at issues around effective mentorship, internship, coaching, and creating platforms that would enable our members to interact and gain continuous deep insights in all the areas of professional skills that they require. So particularly, we will also be targeting our young and newer members such that they would easily blend in and adapt into what the institute is all about, and also be able to quickly begin to participate in the institute's events and activities. As we also know, I was whispering before the meeting started proper that it looks like our council chambers is becoming fairly small for us. So riding on the back of that, we plan the envisaged exam building as being a major focus of even previous administrations who have all done their bits to also ensure that the project remains not just a pipe dream, but something that will come into fruition in due season. And it is one of the major cardinal focus of this administration to see that the project commences, at least with the foundation stone laying and then commencement of the project proper. So definitely we want to see how we can achieve significant progress towards the construction of a befitting exam secretariat. And I believe that by that time, we'll be able to take even ×2 of the number of people in these council chambers. So that's another major focus for us. As we also know that we know the role that technology also plays in all that we do now. We're going to be leveraging technology to generally improve the quality of our programs and other key strategic initiatives that we shall be taking. To this end, we will plan to have a lot of handshake with other international bodies that share similar values with us, that share similar corporate governance ethos as us. So we'll be leveraging technology a whole lot to also continue to interact and interface at that level, and also use technology also locally here, I mean, domesticate it such that we can reach a wider range of our membership to for continuous education reasons. Of course, I've spoken about collaborations and partnerships with both local and international associations. That's very key to us. The way to continue to grow and even improve as an institution, as an institute, is to continue to ensure that there's strategic partnership with like-minded institutes. That way, we can form a symbiotic relationship that would also reverberate across borders and across jurisdictions. Essentially, we also plan to extend the ICSAN learning curriculum to include the public sector and also a wider private sector spectrum. We're going to be widening the scope to include sectors such as oil and gas, energy, agriculture, tourism and aviation, mining, information technology, hospitality, and so on and so forth. So we already have a few of these sectors in our sectorial group structure. However, we're going to be expanding the scope going forward. We shall also be supporting the repositioning of ICSAN as a thought leader in corporate governance and public administration across various sectors of the economy. We'll also be looking to expanding relationships through the corporate social responsibility initiatives that the Institute will also be undertaking through a wide network of partners. So these, amongst others, are the plans that we have. In actual fact, in terms of the cycle of some of these activities, it also depends on the cycle within the Institute that some of these activities would run. For instance, the ICSAN building, whilst we plan to commence, we also know that the time frame we're looking at for the entire project completion is about 36 months. So definitely that is the long way to go, when we're also considering the possibility of variations of that timing along the way. But again, as we know, ICSAN as a professional body and as a professional institute believes in the fact that government is a continuum. So wherever we stop, the next administration, which by the grace of God, this wonderful lady to my right would be leading at that time, would continue. But definitely the plan is to see that we commence the projects in earnest. So I think I'll just take a pause at this point. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Madam President, for that. So Madam President has just shared with us the roadmap of her administration for the next 2 years. I know the original program was it will take questions and answers at the end of everything. But however, are there any pressing issues you want to talk about now briefly before Madam President talks to us briefly on other issues as regards the Nigerian economy?
I think let him hard take everything, but we'll come back.
You'll come back at once, right? Can you have anything else?
Other than
Yes, yeah.
Okay. There are a lot of things to talk about right now. It's an interesting season in the general economy, and we have also just transited into a new government in the country. And we also can see that the new government is doing all its best to hit the ground running, as the president himself has said time and time again. There are some areas that we as an institute would like to just comment on and also advise the new administration on. We know there are some key governance challenges that we face as a nation currently. And maybe I'll just touch on a few of those issues with a view to offering some kind of perspective that would also aid government. So we know ICSAN also prides itself on providing useful advice and perspectives to government on key policy issues. So let's start with the issue of inflation. What is the inflation rate in Nigeria today? 22.7%, thereabouts, as at June. And definitely, sorry, I'm actually just recovering from a flu. Definitely, that is high. The CBN has over time tried to control inflation by increasing interest rates, general interest rates. And of course, from what the textbooks tell us, that ordinarily should have had an impact in reducing the inflation. But what we see, I think this year alone, the CBN has increased NPR about 4 times. Yes, by a total of about 225 basis points. That's huge. But what do we see? Has it had any real impact on the inflation? I would say no. So I think that it's very important for the CBN to look beyond this orthodox method, because it doesn't look like it's working for us. I believe that the government should look beyond management of interest rates to curb inflation. There are so many areas that the government can look into to make the economy more efficient, and there's need to increase real investment in infrastructure. For instance, government should also try and reduce leakages in the system, because at the end of the day, when you look at the cost of governance, all of these also have a direct impact on growth and ability of government to invest. So, and I think for the CBN as well, like I said, economic policies should be made, taking cognizance of our own peculiarities, the peculiarities of our economic situation, and what would work for us. Because the generally believed notion is that when you increase interest rates, this would incentivize savings, to help people to save money, borrow less, and then perhaps reduce spending. And then the inflation can also be reduced. But alas, we have seen it working against us both ways. So I think there's need for government through the CBN to continuously assess policies with a view to checking out if that policy is actually achieving the objective for which it is being doled out. And if it is not achieving that objective, we should not be shy from rejigging and retweaking as may be required. So that's that on inflation. I know the issue of our high debt profile is also an issue. And on that as well, there is no gainsaying the fact that the servicing of this external debts has been a huge burden on the government, and the current position of our external debt is definitely not very healthy for the economy, and it remains a challenge. Is debt in itself a bad thing? I would say no, but the utilization of that debt is what is key. In a situation where the major percentage of what is raised is being used for current expenditure, that is definitely not healthy. But if government tailors it into key and critical sectors of the economy that could become a revenue generating asset, then would be sure that that revenue would be adequate enough to take care of servicing the debts. According to the DMO recently told us that the country's debt service to revenue ratio as of 2023 was about 73%. And what's the threshold? Usually it should be about 50%. So we're clearly way above that threshold. So the 73%, 73.5% actually far exceeds the recommended threshold of 50%. And this tells us that definitely government would have to find ways to increase its revenue. And therein lies the real framework that government needs to do. Our governments across states all have huge human resources, huge natural resources. Some are lying docile, some have not been effectively utilized, some have not even been tapped at all. I think that the time to begin to look outside and beyond just our oil revenues is now. We need to diversify, and we can't even overemphasize that. Government really needs to diversify across states and even the federal government. So we are advocating that with a view to reducing this huge debt burden, government should, without much ado, look at diversifying its revenue generation potentials. Again, we might say that Nigeria being a developing nation will truly do require huge infrastructural development. Looking at our population, over 200 million, definitely infrastructure needs to continuously be enhanced. And then we could say, okay, maybe that justifies the level of debt that we are seeing. But the truth of the matter, if we also look at it in that way, is that if in a situation where those debts are not being channeled in the right direction, it will just be taking the debt for taking sake, because at the end of the day, you still need to pay that debt. Yet you can't find any assets that is helping you to generate any income that can translate into revenue for you. I think that to also help the government, because rather than just pointing out what the issues are, we also try to profile likely solutions. Can government begin to utilize more PPPs to address infrastructural gaps? In that way, if the private sector is brought in to have the PPP arrangements and PPP structures to fund infrastructure projects, is going to reduce the government, is going to reduce the capital required under the budget to fund such projects and free some funds for government to use for other things. It will also help to avoid deficit budgets by the government. Of course, I've spoken about internally generated revenue. The government should focus on sectors like agriculture, like tourism, you know. Those are the kind of sectors that can give us resultant revenue at the end of the day. We have a teeming youth population. We need to empower the teeming youth population as well. That's also key. If we're able to boost domestic economic activities, we definitely can say that there will be resultant revenue to be generated by the government in all of this. So I think the issue of the debt profile is also something that the government will pay attention to. I would just like to pause there. If there are any questions or areas of clarification.
Don't worry.
Thank you very much, Madam President. So the floor is open for questions, comments, or observations.
Thank you very much for
really enlightening everything you said about the economy. So I'd like you to talk on the forex issue, because ever since the CBN unified the exchange rates, the naira has continued to slide to the dollar at the parallel markets. And even though at the investor and exporter window, the naira has not really been at par, although it has the official figure is not really what it used to be. But what we discovered is that naira had continued to devalue And this is amidst the challenges that a lot of businesses have been having, because many of them have been complaining they're unable to repatriate their funds. And some of them are cutting down on production. And with the recent announcement of GSK that is leaving the country, I think this calls for concern because a recent report showed that Nigeria was ranking top unemployment ranking globally. So, but when we have companies relocating out of the country, and even the Manufacturing Association of Nigeria has also deprived the same challenge that many companies have faced, and many of them are still living. I'm still having this issue of forex. So what do you think can be done to stop Naira from further sliding to the dollar, and also help this company to stay in business?
Thank you for that question, madam. It's appreciated. However, we're guided on how this session will go. So could we finish with those core questions, then we can take any other additional question out of those ones, okay? Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, any other question?
No, it's the same, okay, for us to what she said, so that we don't go out of the remit here. No, Madam Keshi, trying to guide your president. You talked about PPP, madam. PPP is as old as our elders here and me. The push of PPP, but government appeared reluctant to push it. So what is the problem? Secondly, you are an advocate of corporate governance. How is it in the public sector?
PPP, I don't think we're using it enough. I think the government can do much more to have a handshake with the public sector to embark on massive infrastructural developments in the country. So we've also found, coming to your direct question now about what is the problem, having not seen enough of it, I would say from my own perspective that perhaps it could be as a result of a few cases that we've seen where PPPs have also gone, have not yielded the kind of results they were meant to yield. And when we want to dissect that, sometimes if you look deeper, you would find a situation whereby perhaps a private sector that doesn't really have the necessary capacity has been given the job. And unfortunately, they are unable to deliver. And it's either it becomes a white elephant project or the project fails altogether. So perhaps that might be, and I'm saying perhaps, I mean, that's one of the factors that could actually be responsible for the slow growth in that area. But that's not to take away the fact that developing our infrastructure through that model can really help us a lot to save, critical capital that is needed to grow other sectors. And they just use PPP arrangements to fund infrastructure projects, which we really do need to embark upon, looking at the number of our population.
So you're suggesting that due diligence will be taken.
Absolutely.
In bringing private sector into
in bringing private sector, absolutely. Because where that due diligence is not well undertaken, it leads to those kind of situations whereby you find that the private sector that has been brought in does not even have the capacity to deliver on the projects. There are quite a number of such, both at the federal and even state levels. You want to add?
Yes, thank you.
The treasurer would like to add it.
Madam President, perhaps an additional dimension that we as an institute, advocating and advising government, to say that government should look into areas of honoring contracts,
Right.
because for like the president said earlier, governance is a continuum, right? So successive government should be able to put up and continue, and so the path of previous government. I mean, that's what we established as an institution. That's why you can see that the vice president, is here, carried along, so it's a continuum. When you get to a point, when the vice president comes on board, he continues. Okay, so where am I going is that as an institute, perhaps government should look more in the area of honoring contracts. Issues of policy sometimes as well could be discouraged. Because areas of infrastructural development should invest, the private sector. The private sector participants and players are out, to invest and make money. Like they rightly said, wherever the integrity, is, capital will flow, in that direction. So perhaps we will advise governments a situation whereby investors come with a particular government across levels, either state, local, or federal, and a new government comes in, and it looks like all of your investments go down the drain. It's going to make the investors, to work on action. So we, as an institute, will be advising government, to look in the area of policy somersault and reduce this, and then honor contracts, such that the moment a particular government signs a contract with you, you said earlier, just like the president said, the issue of due diligence. Once the proper due diligence is done, proper documentation is done, the capacity assessment of the private sector, partner is done, then the government should honor, until completion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Corporate governance in public.
Yes, the corporate governance in the public sector.
Corporate governance in the public sector. That's one huge area of importance that we are also focusing on as an institute. The interesting thing is that once people hear corporate governance, they just assume it's only for corporate entities. But the truth of the matter is that governance is across board, either in the private sector, in the public sector, in the not-for-profit sector. And for us as an institute, we continue to disseminate information around good governance across board, even including public sector. Where we even require good governance much more is in the public sector. Why? Because everything that is done in that space affects you and I. It ends up affecting our corporate businesses, ends up affecting us individually, ends up affecting our business. It affects everything. So it's a key area of focus for us, and we'll continue to pursue that, such that even the public sector has a sense of sticking to strong corporate governance ethos, talking about accountability, talking about transparency, talking about integrity, probity. You see, what I have found in Nigeria is that sometimes we have a whole lot of beautiful projects. We have beautiful, ideas that, if thoroughly carried out to the letter, would truly affect the lives of the citizens. But what we find across, the public sector is a situation whereby at the implementation stage, you find a lack of accountability and lack of transparency makes the good thoughts to just fizzle out. So we cannot overemphasize the need for good corporate governance also in the public sector. I hope I've been able to answer that. That's also very key for us.
All right, thank you very much, Madam President. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Gloria.
Stakeholders have suggested that government should focus on imbibing the culture of sustainability and accountability for Nigeria to survive as a nation. What's your thoughts or perspective on this brimming debates?
Sustainability. Okay. Can you come again with the question?
The stakeholders have suggested government should focus on imbibing the culture of sustainability and accountability for Nigeria to survive as a nation. So what's your thoughts or perspective on this brimming debate?
Okay, thank you very much. It is evident and apparent that without the culture of accountability and transparency, sustainability would be a mirage, so to speak. at the bane of our slow growth and development actually can be gleaned from issues around non-accountability, non-commitment to, ethos of good governance and all of that. So definitely to ensure that there's a sustainability, we need to, leaders across board must show and act accountably. When that happens, and when there's transparency in every process, particularly in the public sector, then we are almost sure that the eventual outcome would be favorable to all and sundry. Now, the issue of also thinking ahead is very key for sustainability. What we are witnessing now is a situation where a whole lot of countries are moving beyond oil. They are moving into other alternative sources of energy. Are we even thinking about sustainability in the long run for us? As a nation, our sole source of forex is oil as a date. If this does go the whole hog, and countries actually begin to drop the need for energy that is generated from oil, and they're going into other sources of energy like solar and all of that, it's going to be a double whammy for us as a nation. Not only are we going to have reduced earnings in foreign exchange terms, we're also going to have to look inwards to also look for alternative sources of energy to power our lives and our businesses. So when we are talking sustainability as well, those are the kind of things we're looking at. Are we forward-looking enough to set the right, or are we just still, living ourselves in our cocoons and believing, well, the future will take care of itself? The future actually starts now, and we must begin to make adequate plans so that we're not hot napping, and then we start going up and down, cap in hand, begging for to borrow, from all over the world. So yeah, accountability and sustainability go hand in hand, and we must be accountable for all the resources, all our resources. There must be, judicious use and efficient utilization of our resources to ensure that sustainability is almost a given, rather than being very apprehensive about what the future holds for us as a nation. When there's lack of accountability, that apprehension will always be there, because we see that there are wastages going on, and then people are not accountable for the resources of the nation. And so we want to believe that going forward, the new administration will begin to right some of these wrongs, because definitely we need to start doing things differently as a nation so that we can also start seeing different results.
All right, thank you, Madam President, for that. Any other questions?
The cost, you spoke on the cost of governance by discussing index. What advice do you have for the federal government on that to reduce cost of governance?
Especially when government does not seem to be doing that, following that trend, with bloated ministerial list, with a bloated convoy, and so on.
Okay, so cost of governance is actually a sticky part of democratic experience, because if you ask the average person, they will tell you, democracy is too expensive, right? Because of situations that you have mentioned. I mean, National Assembly, we know the kind of noise that has gone on around their wages and allowances and all of that. So it's a very sticky area, and there is no denying the fact that high cost of governance usually hinder development. It's a fact, and there's a clear connection between high cost of governance and the country's suboptimal developmental outcomes in real terms. In fact, I think I would like to read a statistics before I take that particular question. So according to the National Economy newspaper, a recent edition, by the way, August 2023. Out of Nigeria's 2023 21.83 trillion total budget, recurrent expenditure has the highest allocation of 8.33 trillion, representing 40% of the budget. This, according to the budget, includes personnel costs of 5 trillion, overhead of 1 trillion, statutory deductions of another maybe 1 trillion, another, just like that. But the 40% recurrent expenditure for 2023 is a consequence of the fact that the budget, this current budget, is historically the highest, right, in the country's history. In previous fiscal periods, recurrent expenditure had reached as high as 72%. Just for us to underscore what, the cost of governance is really costing us. And some of the factors, like you mentioned, that have led to this include massive salaries and allowances of public office holders, maintenance of large number of aides. Those are areas that government can do something about, because knowing the condition we find ourselves right now as a nation, if the government asks its citizens to tighten their belts, I think government should also be seen to be doing the same, just like he said. One thing that also
I said it is there. It is there, don't extend.
We also find the issues of duplication of functions, right, in NDAs. And these are all areas that government can look into. How can we restructure our NDAs to be a lot more effective? If there are overlapping functions, how can we merge ministries, departments, and parastatals? I believe it's not something that could be attained overnight, but if we have a blueprint on how we'll get there, just to reduce the cost of governance, I think that would be very, very, very helpful. There must be a deliberate effort on the part of government to also undertake measures that would rejig governance architectural structures. I think that would also help, like that, the issue of resizing our cabinet would come in. Now that we have 46, no, the ones that are, So my question is, are they all going to be ministers or ministers and other roles like Minister of State and all of that? Because if we're looking at it from the face of it, I think this number looks like the highest number so far to be presented to the National Assembly. And in the situation we find ourselves currently, I'm not really sure that sends the right vibe in curbing or reducing the cost of governance. So I think rethinking the size of the cabinet should also be important to the government, so that we can have and adopt a cost-effective government environment. Not to forget, like I mentioned earlier, all of these layers of public officials would also have numbers of aides, with official vehicles and every other perks following it. So definitely the government will really need to pay more attention to ensuring that the people really see the government also walking the talk of reducing the cost of governance. We should create smarter civil and public service. I've mentioned that. Automation of payment systems would also help a great deal to plug leakages. I think cost of governance also does spike as a result of leakages within the system. So if we can have automation of payment systems, that would be very helpful. So I don't want to talk about the National Assembly. But I know, and again, I'm saying, I know, I have heard that there have been arguments around, must we have a bicameral system of legislature? That's left to us to chew on and imagine the pros and cons of having either a bicameral or unicameral legislature.
Thank you. I would say let's leave the government of Nigeria or governance in Nigeria. Let's look at the governance at home right now. It's been 1 month since you assumed office. Could you tell us about how the 1 month has been for you leading the institute?
Okay, thank you very much. That's an interesting question. Okay, so it's been 1 month of very interesting developments and activities and strategies, and it has come with its challenges for sure. I told you I'm just recovering from a flu, by the way. It's all, part of the stress. So, of course, we know the investiture took place on the 11th of July, and it was a hugely successful event, with the chairman being Mr. Lawale Edun, who was there physically to attend and chair the program. And Mrs. Kapila Tarawi, the MD of Lotus Merchant Bank, as a keynote speaker. It was a well-attended event, and we had so many dignitaries that graced the occasion for us, including captains of industry. So for us, I believe that was a good stepping stone to what we're trying to achieve with our building projects, because we'll definitely be knocking on the doors of most of them to say, okay, what we told you about during the investiture, we are now at the implementation stage, and we need your support. So that really, for us, was very key, that they honored our invitation and they were all there. We had a full capacity hall, and it was a very beautiful event. So talking about since that time up until now, we've had a couple of national and even state chapter events. So we had our annual public lecture on the 20th of July in partnership with Lead City University. So the event actually held at the Lead City University campus. Interestingly, the theme that we dissected at the annual public lecture. By the way, the annual public lecture is one of the CSR initiatives of the Institute. So it's a non-fee pay event. And the theme was the dynamics of leadership in fiscal and monetary policies, with the Central Bank of Nigeria in focus. I'm sure the that asked the question around exchange rates would have found it quite insightful if she had joined that public lecture. So it was very insightful. On the 3rd of August, we also held the Governance Practitioners Day here in Lagos. And about 4 key regulators were there to offer their perspectives on the theme, which centered around current realities of electronic filings, corporate governance and regulatory compliance in an emerging era of electronic filings. That was the thing that we dissected, and it was again a very successful event. Perhaps I should just use the opportunity to also let you know that our major event for the year is also around the corner, which is the national conference, which would come up on the 21st and 22nd of September. So please make it a point to note those dates. It's going to be combining both the conference and the annual dinner and awards. So essentially, it has been a very busy 1 month, but definitely together with my team, you can see them here, also lending their support. It has been worth the while. 1 month seems like 1 year, but I can tell you, with the support of the other office bearers and also all council members, it has been good so far, and I believe that there are so many other beautiful hurdles that would cross and also win together.
Your program has been Lagos centered.
I just told you we took one to Ibadan.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. And then last year we had a public lecture in Abuja.
Okay.
Yes. What else have we held outside station recently?
Governance
For that court, they were last year for governance practitioners. Yeah, we knew you.
You know, the Institute has chapters.
Yeah.
So each chapter is actively doing things in their chapter, sometimes in collaboration with the National Secretariat. So consecutively, at you have Uyo, you have Port Harcourt, Abuja, Ibadan, all having programs and ambitions.
Great.
Okay,
Okay, right.
okay, well, I was just, whispering to Madam President, of course, it's a call, but I'm a member of the team. You asked about governance in the last 1 month. I know that part of what she's done in the last 1 month is that he immediately set up the new structure to work with in the next 2 years, both at the governance level, at the council level, and at secretariat level. It's internal, like you rightly said. So if it's internal, you can as well just discuss it. One of our major first points of call, was the usual town hall meeting with the staff of the institute, where she shared her vision, and then she displayed a good disposition, to staff seeking their, cooperation. And I think that yielded, very good success because it was held outside. It was like a retreat, and I was there, and brought out a lot of revelation, which will be helpful, for her. Unlike just coming and doing a top bottom down approach, to governance. So our approach was, so it's top bottom down. So she did bottom down approach to governance. That's one. Then another thing that I would say in working with her in the last 1 month is that she's been very communicative and expressive. She believes in teamwork, and then she ensures that our principal officers are abreast of everything as soon as she's getting it. And with the presence of our team members in this hall, that simply attests to that. Then kicking off of some collaborations. We have MSc in corporate governance with about 2 institutions. One is with in collaboration with the University of Benin and the Nigerian Institute of Legal NILS, NILS in Abuja. Any moment from now, the MOU is going to be signed, and then the program will kick off. We're looking at it kicking off in the next cycle, of admission. And then another point of call for Madam President has been lead city. Like I said, they've all been in the coolers because you asked that what has happened in the last 1 month. So any moment from now as well, the lead city MOU to also kick off MSc in corporate governance in that university, is also that I'm talking about the next few days or thereabouts. So those are some of the things that I just thought to also inform our partners, friends, that has happened in the last month. Thank you.
I think we give Madam President a round of applause.
You now also just whisper to me. And that one, because it's internal as well, committees, and that's why if you were here last month, the beautiful lady that has been conducting affairs, she probably